leaves their house without any of their items at night and doesn't show back up again.
This isn't just anybody. This is an Ivy League college student with his whole life in front of him.
Did he run away? Was he injured? Had he been abducted?
Blaze Bernstein disappeared 1 week ago.
Missing while home for winter break.
My dad was just like, we have each other. It's going to be okay.
And there was an immediate firestorm of attention to this case.
Charlie Puth, they put it out there. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
This is the period in which begins your amateur
This is what we're trying to
investigation.
figure out
You
what's
become a
going on.
sleuth.
We would not have been able to figure it out without the help of kids his age.
I remember showing the police, like, look what I have.
And that's where the whole evening changed.
Blaze Bernstein's phone at that point in time turned off, and I had no more records.
So they've been together, and
Correct.
suddenly Blaze goes dark.
I heard voices raised in the distance somewhere, screaming like,
Blaze's best friend received a text message. I did something really horrible for the story. No one can ever know.
So if you're dealing with a situation like this, you don't want the person who you're hunting to know that you're onto them.
just help us find my...
Well, the search ramping up today for a Lake Forest teen who disappeared while visiting his family over the holidays.
Blaze Bernstein has been missing since Tuesday night.
Police searching by ground with canines and by air with helicopters.
We're hoping that he's just incapacitated in need of some medical assistance.
Anyone with information should contact the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Blaze Bernstein.
Blaze Bernstein.
Blaze Bernstein.
What are your favorite pictures here?
The kids like to goof off a lot, and he would dress up. They loved to dress up. They loved to do puppet shows, and this is him in a school play when he was little. And we spent a lot of time at Disneyland, because it's right here in our backyard.
Yeah.
That's us sitting there. It was a great day.
Memories of much happier times for parents. Gideon and Jeannie Bernstein married in 1992. They moved from Los Angeles to Orange County to raise a family. They have 3 kids. The youngest is daughter Bowie, Jay in the middle, and Blaze, the oldest.
We had a lot of fun raising the kids together. It was fun. And no one can take that away from us, so we still own that.
Blaze Bernstein grew up here in the city of Lake Forest. It's an upper middle class bedroom community about an hour south of Los Angeles, home to about 90,000 people.
Growing up in Lake Forest was really nice. It was kind of inland from the coast, like 30-minute drive from the beach. It was actually a really quiet residential area. Houses were beautiful, a lot of families there.
When we wanted to start a family, we left Los Angeles with the idea that we'd be moving to a safe suburbia, one of the safest places in the country.
And by all accounts, Blaze is this bright, gifted teenager with a sharp wit and a warm heart.
I've known Blaze since we were babies. Blaze as a kid, besides being very high energy, he was really creative, he was very thoughtful.
Blaze was incredibly bright, curious. He was really a Renaissance young man. I mean, he was interested in everything.
Surrounded by family and friends, Blaze was bar mitzvahed in 2011. That's a Jewish celebration of adulthood on a boy's 13th birthday. It was an occasion especially meaningful to his grandmother.
I did know that his grandmother was from Romania and survived the Holocaust.
I really think that Blaze got it. He was proud to be a Jew, humanistic philosophy, caring about the world and understanding the world's only going to change if human beings change it.
But even though Blaze possessed that understanding, it offered no protection from becoming a target of frequent bullying.
Growing up in Lake Forest was not super easy for him. He was bullied every single day on the bus. He just wanted to get out of the public school system.
And it wasn't just the bullying. Even though Blaze is a good student, he longs for something more.
Go, man, go.
Something that challenged him, not just intellectually, but creatively. And he would find it at OSHA.
OSHA is the Orange County School of the Arts. It is a 7th through 12th charter art school.
In order to get into that school, you have to audition, and about 1 in 10 students who audition actually get into this school. So it's very competitive.
Blaze auditioned for OSHA. He was artistic in every single way possible. He was very creative.
His talents going in were performing arts and writing, and he wanted to move into the creative writing department.
We've had students who wound up professional actors, designers, the writers, the whole thing, musicians.
Among the more famous OSHA alumni are actors Pedro Pascal, class of 1993, who starred in the HBO hit The Last of Us, and Matthew Morrison, a 1997 graduate and star in Fox's popular TV series, Glee.
I want you to listen very closely to the lyrics because I really mean what I'm singing.
Once Blaze got to OSHA, he felt like there was a community there for him. He had a lot of friends. He was very social.
Blaze, when he was a senior in high school, he shared some of his writing with me, and I wrote a letter of advocacy for his application when he applied early decision to Penn because he was a brilliant writer.
Blaze's exceptional talents got him into the University of Pennsylvania, and he moved across the country to Philadelphia as a pre-med freshman in the class of 2020. Was he homesick at the start?
I think that the first semester at school was difficult for him in terms of his social life there. He was used to being in a small school. Now he's a little fish in a big sea, and I think that he had to come to grips with that.
When I found out that he was going to an Ivy League, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
At Penn, Blaze got involved in Pen Appetit.
Pen Appetit is a student-run magazine for people who are interested in writing and also interested in food.
He knew that those would be his people.
Our photographer for Pen Appetit, he held a photo shoot where we dressed up in our chef's whites and aprons. We brought whisks and knives. We have photos of him, holding the whisk, being surprised. I mean, he was so helpful, and we're so fortunate to have these photos of him.
It was a Tuesday in January. A 19-year-old Blaze was home for winter break. He was in a really good place and looking forward to second semester of his sophomore year, but not before he treated his family to a special meal.
He was baking butternut squash with, sprigs of thyme that were inside them.
He took over my job, more or less. I was on vacation, and he was here.
So dinner broke up, I guess, absolutely normally.
It was a quiet night. Didn't hear anything unusual. I woke up the next day and it was a normal morning.
A normal day until it wasn't.
I got up and Blaze's door was closed, and the housekeeper said, "Oh, don't wake him, let him sleep in." And I said, "Okay." Well, I knew I had a dental appointment with him that day, so I decided I'd wait until my yoga class was over to try to contact him so I wouldn't wake him. And I tried getting hold of him, and he wasn't picking up, he wasn't returning my texts. But I went to the dental appointment thinking he would show up, and I immediately called Gideon, and I said he never showed up for his appointment. And he said, "Well, are you sure he slept at the house last night?" And that's when
we both kind of
yelled, "Oh my God."
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein was last seen Tuesday night.
We're hoping to find him and bring him home safely.
And was like, "Hey, have you heard anything from Blaze? He's not picking up the phone. It's really weird. Just let us know if you hear anything." And I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
I was at work, so I basically run out of my office and jump in the car and drive home as quickly as I can. And just go run upstairs, and his glasses are there, his wallet's there, his keys are there.
Panicked and confused, the Bernsteins were calling everyone they could think of to see whether anyone had seen or heard from Blaze in the last 12 hours. And what were they saying?
They didn't know anything.
Nobody knew, where his location was.
Well, I found out that Blaze was missing, and it was just really shocking to me because I was like, there was no way that he could have run away. He wasn't that kind of person.
So this is the period in which begins your amateur
This is what we're trying to figure out
you
what's
become
going
a
on.
sleuth.
Yeah.
Well, we had no idea what was going on.
He hadn't slept in the bed.
And, his bags for going back to school were already packed.
You think, well, hanging out with some kids, other teenagers, and forgot to call home. You have to believe that's defense against the most awful.
When it became dark outside, I think that's when we started to really be super concerned.
One of the first things the Bernsteins thought of is using the Find My app, which allows users to share their location with others. So did you have a follow my friend on the iPhone?
Yes, we did. We had that, and I saw that the location services were turned off.
So we called the sheriff's department.
They came and they were really downplaying it, like, oh, 19-year-olds, they run away sometimes, but they'll be back.
He was adamant that 100% of the time that his kids are out on a booty call or doing something with
Of course, he explains that there were some, unique circumstances with regards to, his personal belongings still being here. And so they offered to do a missing persons report.
So a kid disappears without his glasses, his wallet, or his keys. There are people who actually told me about it just in the couple of days after he went missing, who suggested that maybe this was suicide. Did you ever contemplate that?
Never.
Not even close. He was so happy. He was in a great place.
He was in one of the best places I had ever seen him before. That week, he was so happy. He was so excited to go back to school. He was so excited to, just have the rest of his life. And so at that point, there was no doubt in my mind. He would never have done that.
Gideon and Jeannie confirmed with Verizon that Blaze hadn't made any recent phone calls. A quick check of his computer revealed no exchanges on iMessage or Facebook DMs. And so with virtually no solid information to go on, the Bernsteins, along with help from their 14-year-old daughter Bowie, began dipping deeper into Blaze's social media.
We would not have been able to figure it out without the help of kids his age that he grew up with. and our daughter, yes.
I told my parents, I'm like, I can try and help you, find everything that, you need. I am really good with Snapchat. I knew the names of a lot of his friends, so I was able to, text them and ask them if they knew what was going on.
And that's when the whole evening changed.
Yeah.
When they said, well, what about Snapchat? That's when the light bulb went on. We were exhausted, but I said, okay, well, let's try and figure out how to get in.
Snapchat is a free mobile messaging application used to share photos, videos, texts. But what's different about the app is that whatever is shared, including text messages, disappears from the recipient's screen after just a few seconds.
We were lucky because we knew his username because he was connected with our daughter. And the password ended up being one of the ones that we had on our iCloud keychain. So we typed the username, and then we tried that password in, and boom, we're in.
Still, getting into Blaze's Snapchat account was only half the battle. Yes, it might contain a critical record of who Blaze may have been in contact with the night he disappeared, but as the Bernsteins discovered, simply viewing the message might also trigger it to vanish.
At the time, Snapchat worked. If you sent a message, it could only be saved if you purposefully saved it, and could be deleted by the person who sent it, and it only lasts 24 hours if you don't save it.
And there were so many other pitfalls with this. I mean, if you take a screenshot of these communications because you think you're saving them, well, that alerts the person that sent it to you.
The sender gets an alert.
So if you're dealing with a situation like this, you don't want the person who you're hunting to know that you're onto them.
What you're describing is basically dealing with this digital nitroglycerin that at any moment could just blow up in your faces. And this is the most important thing in your lives right now.
I had my daughter next to me, and I said, okay, I need you to save, because I know there's a way that you can save it, but I didn't really know how.
What time is it by now?
I don't know, it's close to 10 o'clock at night, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we saw that Blaze gave our address out to somebody.
Did you know who?
We didn't know at the time who it was. We saw the name.
I had absolutely no idea who he was. I was so happy that there was somebody who we could talk to that could just help us find my brother.
Bernsteins didn't know the person Blaze sent his address to, but in the hours ahead, the discovery of that person's identity would turn the desperate search for their son upside down.
Hi, this is Blaze's dad. We really need to know what you know. We can't find him.
This is becoming an urgent issue with trying to figure out what really happened to him, and we're going to really need your help on this because you're the last person that probably saw him.
That was not the person that I really expected.
And doesn't show back up again.
This isn't just anybody. This is an Ivy League college student with his whole life in front of him. With a beautiful life waiting for him.
Hours had passed since anyone had heard or seen Blaze. Did he run away? Was he injured? Had he been abducted? There was no sign of him anywhere. Now, as darkness fell, there was finally a glimmer of hope.
We wanted to make sure that if there was any chance that Blaze was still alive, that we took it. I wanted to ensure that not 1 second was wasted.
And the Bernsteins discovered something else. It was a final text message sent to Blaze at 3 p.m. from his best friend. Hey, I'm really worried about you. Please text me. There was no reply. The Bernsteins frantically reached out to that best friend, who told them Blaze did exchange messages with someone else overnight. Now it seemed that person was their best hope of finding Blaze.
But we don't know what the conversations were that led up to his disappearance, so we want that information.
Gideon Bernstein, through his own investigation, found out that there was communication on the Snapchat application. And so he was able to message through direct messaging Sam Woodward.
We didn't know who he was. I was like, we should call him. Like, he definitely knows what's going on. And so I encouraged my dad to call him, and we recorded a call.
We haven't heard from him all day. He missed an appointment today, and then we started getting concerned, and I've been trying to figure things out. So you're the first real clue to the puzzle here.
Yeah, honestly, I'm sorry.
I don't know if my dad told me to record it, or if I just had the thought that maybe having any sort of evidence that we could hold on to would be able to help us.
I don't mean to put any pressure on you. I know you're a nice young man, but I'm asking you for help on this if you can, if you've got the ability to do that.
Absolutely. This is, I want to find Blaze as much as you do.
During that call, Sam Woodward told Gideon that Blaze suggested they drive to a nearby park to meet yet another one of his friends, but never mentioned that friend by name.
And he said he invited a third friend to come along. So I said, okay.
I didn't want to speak because I didn't want to, get involved, but I was listening and to my dad, just ask him questions and go back and forth.
And then did he get out of the car, or what happened?
Yeah, he got out of the car, and I got out of the car too, and I just asked him, who is this guy? And he's just like, you'll find out in a little bit, he's a friend of mine. And then, so I just like, okay, Blaze, and I just waited there by the bathroom, and I didn't see where he went.
I was just thinking to myself, this is maybe weirdest, situation that we could be in at this moment. And I remember that phone call went on for a while, too.
I guess I realized, did something happen to him? So I went back. I searched all over for him where I was at the library. I couldn't find him anywhere. And I guess I just figured he might just call me in the morning or just pranking me. But I'm scared now.
It's a disturbing phone conversation, which now raises more questions for the Bernsteins than it answers.
We were curious to know who this person was, but then we did find out he was a student at OSHA.
20-year-old Sam Woodward and Blaze were former high school classmates at OSHA.
I have known Sam since he was born, kind of grew up alongside of him. I remember excitement, during Sam telling me that he was going to OSHA.
Woodward grew up only 30 minutes away in the wealthy coastal town of Newport Beach.
Sam was joyful. He was a really happy, special kid.
He lived in this house with his parents and a brother who by all accounts were devout Catholics and attended church regularly.
Everything we did, all the families we spent time with, were from our church.
I did teach Sam Woodward in acting for the camera in his 10th grade, and I had him for the one semester.
For 10 years, Phil Schwadron taught drama and directing for grades 9 through 11 at OSHA.
He was definitely serious. He didn't crack jokes, didn't laugh a lot, as to my memory.
Sam went to OSHA with me from 7th grade to 10th grade. I would say that he did not necessarily fit into the general OSHA artsy vibe.
We came back for what would have been Sam's 11th grade year, and I said, who have I got this year? And my boss said, yeah, you're going to get them all back except one left the school. Who left the school? Sam Woodward left the school.
I wasn't really surprised that he left. I kind of just thought that he left because he just didn't like it there.
After leaving OSHA, Sam enrolled in Corona Del Mar High School. During that time, he became an Eagle Scout, graduating in 2016. Now, 2 years later, nothing seemed to explain how or why this unlikely pair with seemingly nothing in common ended up together in this park. And now, one safely home, the other nowhere to be found. So now you have this critical piece of information.
Yeah.
Do we immediately call the sheriffs and say,
Yes.
we have something?
Yes, we did.
Yep, right away.
And what's their response?
They come over right away.
They came over.
Okay.
And now it was serious.
We just gave him the lead of the last person we knew that he had seen.
I remember taking that call and showing the police, like, look what I have. We talked to somebody who said that they know where my brother is.
When I first saw the missing persons report and I was reading the details, some of those details definitely stuck out. So something told me just deep within me that this was unusual. So my then partner, investigator, Jack Ackerman, and I went to the park, probably right around lunchtime on January 4th.
I had a feeling as a mother. It was my intuition that something very bad had happened.
Bernstein's family realized he was missing. Blaze's sister, Bowie, recorded a phone call between her father and 20-year-old Sam Woodward, a former high school classmate who says he was one of 2 people with Blaze the night he disappeared.
I'm Mr. Bernstein, but your guess is as good as mine.
Woodward said Blaze made plans for a 3rd person to meet up with them in a neighborhood park that night.
Blaze didn't tell me anything about this guy except that he was from OSHA like us.
Really appreciate you calling me and sharing that info. And is it okay if I reach back out to you if I need some help?
Absolutely. I want to find Blaze as much as you do.
When they were talking about meeting another person, I was like, what other person? Who else would my brother, like, be with?
So you want a water? I got a water. How much do you want?
The next day, Orange County Sheriff's investigators bring in Sam Woodward to ask some questions of their own.
You can leave at any time. You're not under arrest or anything like that, okay? We're just trying to find Blaze. Find Blaze. That's it.
As investigators get to know Sam Woodward, they learn that he was living with his parents and working odd jobs.
My goals in life are I just want to start a family. I just want to have enough money to support my kids. I just want to have a wife who loves me and get a good job and go to college.
Woodward says he recently reconnected with Blaze on social media.
He said something like, Sam Woodward. Now, that's a face I haven't seen in a while.
I'm looking for eye contact. I'm looking for his general comfortability to try to gain a sense whether somebody I feel is telling me the truth or telling me a lie.
At some point during the conversation on Snapchat, you decided to meet up. That is correct.
For Blaze's family, the fact that he went out at all that night was a revelation.
We had dinner actually at the dining room table with everybody. He was supposed to fly back to school. So it was going to be the last time my parents were going to see him for quite a while. There was no indication from him that he was going out that night.
During his interview with police, Woodward said that after he picked up Blaze at his house, they drove around for a while, eventually stopping at Borrego Park.
Borrego Park is in the city of Lake Forest. It's a place where you can take your kids. It also has remote hiking trails that stretch for miles.
At some point, somebody exits the car, right?
Mm-hmm. Did he tell you where he was going? He said he was going to meet the friend that he was talking about.
Just like in that call with Blaze's father, Woodward told officers that Blaze was meeting another friend at the park that night. Woodward says he stayed behind as Blaze walked away and disappeared out of sight.
At one point, I heard voices raised in the distance somewhere, but, I mean, that happens to my neighborhood all the time. You hear, like, girls screaming, like, ah, and all that. And so I didn't really pay much mind to it.
But I wanted him to feel comfortable talking to me, and he was. Woodward says he looked for Blaze, but eventually gave up and went home.
I mean, I don't know what happened to him, but something must have. All that matters is that we find him and we get him back to his family safe. Yeah, absolutely. Especially her talking to his parents, because his parents are really nice people.
After several hours of questioning, Sam Woodward left. But police, they remained suspicious, so they decided to put him under surveillance.
I'm trying to record it right now.
There's a large team that was deployed into the field, and we followed him anywhere that he went.
And with this growing cause of concern for Blaze Bernstein comes the glare of the media spotlight. The Blaze Bernstein missing persons case is now big news.
The Orange County Sheriff's Department searched the park, but they haven't seen any signs of Blaze.
Blaze was supposed to be in school this morning.
He was supposed to fly back a Sunday, go to class today, but instead he's missing.
I remember going with my dog to Borrego Park before and kind of just like walking around to see like, what if I find him here?
Bowie documented that desperate period of time with pictures and videos posted on her Snapchat.
Our congregation went into high gear. We printed flyers with his name and picture and the facts and who to call, and we put them up on bulletin boards and poles all around the city.
At this point, it's now in the hands of the police.
Mm-hmm.
But you continue to work.
Yes.
Now you take to social media.
Round the clock. You know, it looked like war games in this house. We had terminals all over the dining room table, and we were all just working.
There was an immediate firestorm of attention to this case. We were absolutely inundated with tips from the public. And there were hundreds within the first week, and then that grew exponentially.
Some of our contacts were friends with some of the celebrities that were willing to post it on their social media. And so we had the missing persons flyer out for Blaze on, Kobe Bryant's Facebook page, and Charlie Puth, he put it out there, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So it started to catch a lot of attention.
We were spending every minute talking about it. People were filming in our house, interviewing my parents. Nothing like this ever happened where we were.
Any sign of him, any clothing, obviously him. We're hoping to find him, hoping that he's just incapacitated and in need of some medical assistance so that we can get him and bring him home safely.
There was like this team of people with drones, and they were going throughout Whiting Ranch Wilderness Park, where we were concerned maybe my brother was back there, and maybe there was a mountain lion, or maybe like something happened to him and he was missing or lost.
For the fourth night in a row, the Bernstein family will go to sleep without their oldest son at home.
It was clear as the week wore on that it was more and more dire.
There's a lot of pressure, immense pressure to perform.
Then, on January 9th, with Blaze missing for 7 days now, a discovery which upends the case.
Jack and I were teamed up. Jack said, "Dylan."
You heard it in his voice.
I could hear it in his voice.
Those new developments and the mysterious disappearance of an Ivy League student.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein missing while home for winter break.
The Sheriff's Department launched an extensive search with help from the community.
Days had passed since Blaze vanished into the night. The relentless search by police and volunteers had turned up nothing. Just more anguish for the Bernsteins and frustration for authorities.
The Orange County Sheriff's Department searched the park, but they haven't seen any signs of Blaze.
We utilized cadaver dogs. We utilized drones. We had been to Borrego Park and searched that park over and over again with a fine-tooth comb.
On January 9th, a week after Blaze went missing, investigators decided to go back to Borrego Park one more time after obtaining cell phone data showing Blaze and Sam Woodward were there together. And this is a week after Blaze went missing.
Yeah, it led us to this particular area when all of a sudden Blaze Bernstein's phone at that point in time turned off.
So they've been together, and suddenly Blaze goes dark.
Blaze goes dark, and then Sam Woodward's phone continues. There was a torrential downpour. It was cold, it was raining, everything was wet, everything was muddy. We searched all this area until my partner Jack and I came to this area right here.
I saw a spot that looked unusual, so I walked down. There was a large tree branch covering an area that looked a little odd, like the rain had kind of settled some dirt around something. I moved the tree branch, and you could see the left hip and upper left leg area of a human body.
And you knew?
You knew.
Had to be him.
Instantly. In my gut. Without even seeing the face. And I knew that it was Blaze Bernstein.
They must have found his cell phone as well.
We located a broken cell phone about probably 6 inches, 8 inches below where the body was found.
I was sitting in my English class in 8th grade, and the teacher got a call, and he was like, "Bowie, you're gonna go to the office, they need you for something." And I was like, "Oh, good, maybe some good news." And they took me into this room, and I saw my godmother. She was crying, and I looked at her, and she just hugged me, and she said, "They found him, he is dead. Blaze is gone."
To the index in the body of a college student found in Lake Forest, California. Blaze Bernstein had disappeared 1 week ago. The case now a homicide.
That was the end of hope for me.
We started off this journey over a week ago, looking for our son and asking for everyone to help us find Blaze Bernstein. And we just have learned that they have positively identified son Blaze's body today.
Yeah, I just felt so numb, like nothing that had happened in my life had mattered anymore. And then when I got home, my dad was just like, he was just defeated, but he just said, like, it's gonna be okay. Like, we have each other, it's gonna be okay. Sorry.
The specific details of what occurred at Brego Park are part of the ongoing investigation.
The autopsy revealed injuries which I believe were a result of an extremely violent encounter. Blaze was stabbed 14 times in the left side of his neck, 5 times in the right side of his neck. He was stabbed, in the knee. He had defensive wounds all over his fingers. He was fighting for his life, and probably a surprise attack.
You hear about that many stab wounds. What does it tell you about the person or the mindset of the person who did that?
Hate and rage. Intimate. It was an intimate killing.
It was devastating news for the family and for the community.
My reaction when I heard it was fury, anger, disbelief. I haven't felt those feelings in my life.
As the investigation into Blaze's murder began, hundreds gathered for a vigil in his honor.
We lost one of our sons. I hope that we can all join together and support the Bernstein family.
The funeral was incredibly painful. We had to ask for RSVPs because we could only accommodate here in the building about 11 or 1,200 people. And then there was a public service of the largest space we have in Orange County a few weeks after the funeral in the 3,000 seats. That was full.
I believe most people are good.
Students from Blaze's Performing Arts High School chose to sing Brian's song, Most People Are Good.
I see a lot of goodness here, and I hope that we can bring more tolerance, more peace, understanding, and love to everything that we do and make a better world for our children. Thank you.
The community wrapped its arms around the Bernstein family. The park near their house where Blaze played as a child and where his body was found turned into a makeshift memorial with messages of love and support from all over the world.
This is a note somebody left us. Dear Lord, please watch over the Bernstein family and give them strength during this time. Please guide our police department to help them find the person or persons who took Blaze away. We still needed answers, because we didn't have anybody in custody. In my mind, the hunt was still on.
But for investigators, the hunt would be far more complex because they've discovered that the night of the murder, Blaze's best friend received a text message from Blaze's phone saying, quote, I did something really horrible for the story, but also no one can ever know, end quote. Blaze's friend responds, what story? But gets nothing back.
That was the last text message that was sent from his phone.
The last text message from the phone of a murder victim is always going to be of critical importance to a homicide investigator.
We are 6.5 years since my son was killed.
Blaze is ready. Blaze the trail.
We are all going through our own personal hell right now.
Blaze Bernstein was found with 28 stab wounds.
You hear about that many stab wounds. What does it tell you about the person or the mindset of the person who did that?
A lot of anger somewhere from within. They took it out on Blaze Bernstein.
Did I introduce him to something that later on came back to haunt us all?
Not only was this just a murder, now we're starting to see a bigger picture.
What do you make of the fact that it's very possible that a neo-Nazi killed Blaze in the United States?
He's the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. This can happen anywhere.
There was almost like a gasp from some people.
Police believe they know who killed Blaze Bernstein.
Were you planning to kill him that night?
I hope that we can all join together and support the Bernstein family.
We're hoping for better results, but yesterday afternoon, sheriff's investigators did find the body of Blaze Bernstein.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein was first reported missing by his family on January 3rd, 2018. But after a week-long search, he was found dead in a park near his parents' Orange County, California home.
As this investigation moves from search and rescue to a homicide investigation, we ask for your continued support in providing tips and information to the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
As investigators search for answers about who had killed Blaze and why, his parents Jeannie and Gideon flew east to Philadelphia to begin a grim task: cleaning out Blaze's apartment on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. The grief-stricken Bernstein family invited us to go with them for this emotional and difficult journey.
This is the apartment building that my son moved into. He's on
Let's look at this now.
5 days before he came home to California.
It's been hard especially for Jeannie, to come here, having to go and, basically clean up your child's life after they're gone.
The kitchen was meticulous. I mean, he had every appliance and everything. I loved his apartment. It was so beautiful. It was so Blaze.
This is the Whisk sweatshirt that my brother got. He was an editor for Pen Appetit magazine. We were going through his closet and we found it, and I was like, I'm gonna take that.
We had an opportunity to meet Blaze's friends. We will be here for you forever, and we appreciate your friendship.
I'm delighted that Blaze had them in his life because I know that they all made him very happy.
You would have loved this. I used to wear this all the time.
Blaze was someone that you can trust with anything, and I trusted him with my life. It was apparent that Blaze was figuring out himself, whether it be religion or sexuality or experience.
At what point as parents did you realize that Blaze was gay?
I had an idea about it when he was probably early high school. I saw something on a phone or that he didn't want me to see, and it kind of confirmed a suspicion that I had, and I think he knew that I had seen it.
We actually had a conversation while he was back at college, and he was telling us, essentially, yeah, I am gay, but I just don't want to talk about it.
Did people at school know? Was he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think his friends did at school.
Because Blaze was so open about his sexuality with me, I feel like that definitely gave him a better foundation. So if he was to go to his parents and his family and open up about that part of his life, he would have known that we were all there for him.
You noticed that too? I took a picture of it in the mirror.
As a mother of a gay man, I am proud to be that.
Blaze is ready. Blaze the trail.
You feel like an artist that you have spent your lifetime sculpting this amazing piece of artwork, and then it gets destroyed. And so here we are. Our artwork is gone. Hard to accept.
Back home in California, the investigation continued, and the focus remained on Blaze's former high school classmate, Sam Woodward, the person who admitted to driving with him to Borrego Park.
We have interviewed that friend several times, and that person is not in custody, and we are not prepared to comment on persons of interest at this time.
When Orange County Sheriff's investigator Dylan Jansen first spoke with Woodward the day after Blaze was reported missing, he says Woodward seemed nervous and told different versions of where at Borrego Park he and Blaze went that night. And Jansen says Woodward had what appeared to be injuries on his hands.
Those cuts on your hands are pretty gnarly. I mean, how do you think you got those from the Fight Club?
Sam said he was involved with a fight club. He said that he sustained these cuts to his hands after somebody was clawing at him during one of the fights.
When I swung at him, I kind of fell on my ass. And I usually try and have my hands to break my fall from me, and so I landed on some rocks.
I've heard of fight clubs, but I didn't believe it. Anytime that Sam Woodward was walking around the station, when he touched the doorknobs, he would cover his hands with the sleeves of his sweatshirt. Is he attempting to cover up fingerprints? Is he attempting to cover up DNA? It was definitely something that stood out.
Nearly a week after that interview with police, when Blaze's body was found, investigators went looking for Sam Woodward once again.
Investigators said that when they searched Woodward's bedroom, there was some damning evidence. They found a knife with blood on the handle and on the tip of the blade. They also found bloodstains on a sleeping bag outside his window and on the driver's side of his car.
The knife that was found in Sam Woodward's room, the areas of the vehicle that had apparent blood in it, the sleeping bag that was found on the side of Sam Woodward's home, they were all tested for DNA, and those results concluded to be the blood from Blaze Bernstein.
With this new evidence, police are now ready to make an arrest.
Under arrest, 20-year-old Samuel Lincoln Woodward suspected of killing Blaze Bernstein.
Police say DNA evidence led them to arrest the 19-year-old's former high school classmate.
I remember thinking to myself, that's the guy that was on the phone.
I want to find Blaze as much as you do.
At the time, I thought, I wonder what my brother was thinking before he died. I wonder if he was in pain, or I wonder if he could have saved himself. I think once Sam was arrested, I knew my brother didn't have a chance.
But something authorities were playing pretty close to the vest was motive. Why would Sam Woodward want to kill Blaze Bernstein? As the days unfolded, investigators would confront a possibility they hadn't even originally contemplated.
Not only was this murder, we're starting to see a bigger picture. It was absolutely shocking.
Office filed one felony count of murder against 20-year-old Newport Beach resident Samuel Woodward.
Before joining ABC News, I spent 26 years as a deputy district attorney in the Orange County DA's office, and for a time, I was one of the prosecutors consulting on this case. Sam Woodward was taken into custody 10 days after Blaze went missing, and 3 days after his body was found.
There was the victim's DNA on property that was in the control of the defendant.
Well, I remember that moment well. I was sitting in my room. I think I was watching on television, and I just thought to myself, it's finally happened. Now what?
With the knowledge of how Blaze was murdered, now an excruciating reality for the Bernsteins, the focus turned to why.
Blaze was stabbed nearly 20 times in the neck. Using a knife to kill is particularly violent because you have to be up so close. That many wounds says this was likely a crime of rage or of passion, more personal than your typical murder. So as a prosecutor, my next question would be, who is Sam Woodward and what was his relationship with Blaze?
I had no clue why Blaze would be meeting with Sam. You know, they were never really friends in school. I just know that everybody else got bad vibes from him.
Woodward grew up in Newport Beach, the wealthy suburb south of LA in Orange County. He was a Cub Scout and Eagle Scout, and as we know, Woodward spent part of his high school years at OSHA, the same elite art school where Blaze had also been a student.
It took me a couple of minutes as I watched the footage. It started to dawn on me, oh my God, that's the Sam I taught. Every kid in my acting for the camera class, it was film work. So I said, everybody pick your favorite movie and bring me a scene or a monologue from that film. And he said, I want to do something from the Army. So I gave him Brad Pitt's speech in Inglourious Bastards.
As a bushwhacking guerrilla army, we're going to be doing one thing and one thing only. Killing Nazis.
The provocative Quentin Tarantino World War II thriller is about a plan to assassinate Nazi leaders by a band of Jewish soldiers.
It weighs heavily on me that I introduce him to something that later on came back to haunt us all.
A.C. Thompson, an investigative reporter for ProPublica, uncovered some disturbing information when digging into Woodward's background.
When I started reporting on Sam Woodward, what really stuck out to me was this. Sam Woodward was a member of the Atomwaffen Division, which was a neo-Nazi terrorist group that aimed to bring down the U.S. government and incite a race war.
Race war now!
Atomwaffen posted violent propaganda videos online to spread a message of hate and to help recruit new members.
The Atomwaffen Division was a neo-Nazi group that existed from about 2015 to 2020. They were inspired by Charles Manson. They were also inspired by Tim McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber. They weren't interested in protests or marching in the streets. They wanted to kill people.
That organization was hell-bent on destroying America within, taking down the system.
My reporting team and I got access to thousands and thousands of private chat messages that were between members of the Atomwaffen group. Sam Woodward was one of the people in these chats.
Writing in the chats under the alias Saboteur, Woodward spewed anti-Semitic, anti-gay, misogynist hate.
When we executed the search warrants on several electronic devices, including computers and cell phones and laptops, there were thousands of images of white supremacist propaganda and hundreds of images to include the Atomwaffen Division.
But Woodward's interest in Atomwaffen apparently went beyond just talk in a chat room. Also found on Sam Woodward's devices was a picture with James Mason. He's a neo-Nazi whose writings Atomwaffen members describe as a main influence on the group, along with a photo of Woodward in a skull mask giving the Nazi salute.
Now we're starting to see a bigger picture. Not only was this just a murder, there's a high probability that Sam Woodward killed Blaze Bernstein because he was homosexual, possibly because he was Jewish, or a combination of both.
I'm here to announce the Orange County District Attorney's Office will file an amended complaint, a hate crime enhancement accusing Woodward of intentionally committing first-degree murder, due in whole or in part to Blaze's sexual orientation. We will prove that Woodward killed Blaze because Blaze is gay.
What do you make of the fact that it's very possible that a neo-Nazi killed Blaze in the United States?
Yeah, if that's the case, that's going to be the biggest tragedy of this story.
He's the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. This can happen anywhere. You aren't safe from this type of hate.
But something else that's still not adding up, how were Blaze Bernstein and Sam Woodward connected? They were both from Orange County, but Blaze, a young gay Jewish man, and Woodward, a member of a neo-Nazi group, seemed to have nothing else in common. Why were they together that night in the first place? Sam Woodward would have his day in court with a stunning new look. And a surprising defense. Blaze Bernstein in January 2018, it would take 6 years for him to face a jury. Woodward was charged with first-degree murder, a hate crime. He pleaded not guilty.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein was stabbed repeatedly and killed back in 2018, and now, 6 years later, that trial finally begins today.
By the time the trial was starting, I'd already left the DA's office, but I was watching the proceedings closely.
Still, no one seems prepared for the Sam Woodward that has led into Judge Kimberly Menager's courtroom.
There was almost like a gasp from some people, just to kind of that visceral reaction to kind of seeing long, dark, stringy hair, long, dark beard, covering his face. It's hard not to kind of draw mental comparisons to Charles Manson.
Blaze Bernstein was found with 28 stab wounds.
Senior Deputy District Attorney Jennifer Walker's opening statements tell the story of a young man who they say set out to murder 19-year-old Blaze Bernstein in cold blood. That hate crime charge, she explains, that was brought because prosecutors believe the evidence showed Sam Woodward murdered Blaze because he was gay, but not because he was Jewish.
You'll see the cell phone evidence, the defendant's words, the defendant's hate.
But in his opening statements, defense attorney Ken Morrison did something we definitely don't see every day by making a stunning admission.
My client, Sam Woodward, was responsible for that death. The why is the single most important issue you will need to decide.
This is no longer a trial about guilt or innocence. The question now becomes, did Woodward plan the killing because of a hatred of gay people? Was it premeditated? If the jury agrees, that could mean a first-degree murder conviction and most likely a sentence of life without the possibility of parole.
Morrison argues for a lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter and an acquittal of the hate crime allegation, which would result in a reduced sentence and a chance for parole.
The evidence will show that Blaze Bernstein's sexual orientation had absolutely nothing to do with the reason he was killed.
Jennifer Walker calls her first witnesses, Blaze Bernstein's parents. Gideon Bernstein now faces down the man who killed his son as he recounts the painful moments when the family first realized that Blaze was missing.
You remember where you were when you got the phone call?
I do remember that.
And why does that stand out in your mind?
Because it was the beginning of hell.
Jennifer Walker then brings an Orange County Sheriff's deputy to the stand to describe what he watched Sam Woodward do on January 5th, 2018, after police decided to put Woodward under surveillance.
What did you observe?
I observed him what appeared to be cleaning his vehicle, the interior and exterior.
He had in his possession what looked like a spray bottle of cleaning product.
He's not scrubbing the driver's side door.
It was very strange to us. What was he cleaning? Why?
Jennifer Walker then digs into the heart of her hate crime argument, portraying Sam Woodward as somebody who changed from Eagle Scout to neo-Nazi.
He had developed his long-standing beliefs against Jewish people and gay people, and started joining groups that espoused the views that he had.
This is where Woodward's involvement in the extremist group Atomwaffen becomes key for the prosecution. Investigators say they found these images on Woodward's personal devices.
The prosecution calls an ex-member to the stand whose voice has been altered and his face obscured at the request of the court. He's also using an alias.
Good morning, Mr. Murphy.
Prosecutors allege that Woodward sought out the group, and once there, the fires of his hatred were further stoked as he attended multiple meetings.
So this summer of 2017, Austin, Texas, tell us what you and Sam Woodward did.
We took propaganda photos. That involved us throwing up Nazi salutes. Put the Atomwaffen logo on the photos, for propaganda purposes.
The prosecution also presents what Woodward himself labels Sam's diary of hate, emails he sent to himself over a 7-month period in 2017.
The prey that the defendant had chosen was gay people. And he kept a diary of his feelings and intentions.
And who did the prosecution allege that he was, quote, hunting? Well, they say that Sam Woodward had been visiting online dating sites to connect with gay men.
Downloaded Grindr so I could send photos of their fellow sodomites being killed and tell them that they're going to be next. They're terrified. LMAO. This is too much fun. They think they're going to get hate crimed, and it scares the out of them.
And this is how the prosecution claims Sam Woodward targeted Blaze while he was hunting for victims on the dating app Tinder. The two men first connected on the app in June of 2017, 3 years after they'd been classmates at OSHA. And then again, the night Blaze disappeared. The last exchange is allegedly what led to their encounter in Borrego Park.
And then here is where the luring starts. And the defendant says, "Is anyone near you right now? Because I just wanted to say." And Blaze says, "Nope. No, what? No one is near me." And the defendant says, "I might make an exception for you." And the defendant says, "Look, do you have Snap?" And then we have Blaze snapping his address to the defendant at 10:37 p.m. on January 2nd of 2018.
According to prosecutors, the trap had been set and Blaze stumbled right into it that night when he agreed to meet up with Sam Woodward.
But when it's the defense's turn to present its case, jaws will drop in the courtroom because the star witness will be the defendant himself, Sam Woodward. And the crux of the defense's case, that Sam had a secret and would go to any lengths to hide it, even if he had to kill.
He kept saying something that I can only remember as, "I got you already. I got you, I got you."
Today we're going to another day of court. It's definitely a challenge emotionally and mentally to get up and just have to go and do this.
We are 6.5 years since my son was killed. We are all going through our own personal hell right now. The the prosecution rested last week, and we're now listening to defense witnesses.
Sam Woodward's defense attorney, Ken Morrison, is making his case.
Sam did not hate Blaze for any reason.
Remember, the defense has acknowledged that 26-year-old Sam Woodward killed Blaze Bernstein, but they insist it was neither a premeditated murder nor a hate crime.
You will also hear lots of additional evidence that helps to explain why this homicide was committed.
But just as Morrison starts laying out his case, the defense team is dealt a blow. The judge rules that some evidence is inadmissible, including that mysterious last text message sent from Blaze's phone on the night of the murder. I did something really horrible for the story, but also no one can ever know.
The jury then hears how Sam Woodward was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which the defense says hindered his ability to make and maintain friendships and contributed to Sam's acute sense of isolation and loneliness.
This helps to explain how starved Sam was for the camaraderie, the brotherhood, and acceptance, and how profoundly vulnerable he was to recruitment in groups like Atomwaffen.
The defense claims Sam Woodward's participation in Atomwaffen wasn't as much about ideology as it was about connecting with others and just having a good time. Morrison calls former Atomwaffen member Tyler Wiesing to the stand.
So would you characterize the camp as very serious in terms of the ideology, goals, training, that sort of thing?
That was the intent and the image. In the reality, it was a bunch of people getting drunk and not taking things seriously.
As for those Tinder messages, well, the prosecution argued that Sam Woodward was online to hunt and terrorize victims. Morrison says that never happened, and he argues that in this case, it was Blaze who pursued Sam.
June 15, 2017, Blaze Bernstein saw Sam's profile on Tinder, and Blaze Bernstein initiated the first contact with Sam Woodward, not the other way around. And then Sam says, "Thing is, you're not too shabby looking yourself, Blaze." Blaze says, "Well, thanks, Sam. That's sweet of you." An emoji. Sam says, "Yeah, you're cute, TBH, to be honest."
According to the defense, Sam Woodward was repressing his own feelings of homosexuality, which could help explain the reason behind, quote, Sam's diary of hate.
He's trying to kind of keep this as like this hidden away part of his life. That these hate diary entries are simply narrative constructs to cover up that part of him should Atomwaffen members get suspicious.
Morrison argues that Sam Woodward was tortured by his sexual identity because of what he claims he heard at home. He calls Woodward's mother, Michelle, to the witness stand.
Ms. Woodward, was it ever communicated to your children that homosexuality is a sin?
Yes.
And who communicated that?
My husband.
The defense calls James Markle to the stand, please.
Family friend James Markle tells the court about an incident he says Michelle recounted to him about Sam's father, Blake.
Was there any particular word that Michelle Woodward told you that she would hear Blake call Sam?
He would say, gay.
But when called to the stand, Sam Woodward's father, Blake, denies using any homophobic slurs.
Would you make a derogatory remarks about homosexual people in Sam's presence?
No. But ultimately, the case would hinge on the testimony of the one person who was there the night Blaze Bernstein was killed, Sam Woodward.
The defense is calling on Samuel Woodward.
For the defense, calling their client to testify is a risky move. It can be viewed as a Hail Mary or as a very shrewd tactic to play on the jury's sympathies.
Hey, Mr. Woodward, can I ask you if you're able to move the hair out of your face a little bit?
Sam Woodward's defense attorney, Ken Morrison, takes Woodward through the story of his life, arriving at a key question.
Sam, was there ever a time in your life that you can recall where you wondered whether you might be gay?
No, I can't say really there was, no.
This may have just blown up Ken Morrison's defense. which hinges on the argument that Sam Woodward was struggling with his sexual identity. And that will become hugely important because of what Morrison is about to argue Blaze did that night, which he says provoked the attack.
You will learn that Blaze Bernstein was not killed because of who he was, but because of what he did to Sam Woodward after they met up.
What will Sam Woodward say happened that night?
When you drove to Blaze Bernstein's house to pick him up, Sam, were you planning to kill him?
In the trial of Sam Woodward, and defense attorney Ken Morrison is questioning his client about the night that he and Blaze ended up in Borrego Park.
I'm pretty sure I said we should hang out at some point. Or rather, it'd be cool if you wanted to, and right after that, he said to me that he was actually free this night, right now. And at that point, I said, all right, cool.
Sam Woodward testifies that after picking up Blaze near his house, the two men eventually arrived at the park. There, on a bench, Woodward claims the night took a dark turn.
Woodward said he smoked some marijuana, was starting to kind of get drowsy, kind of nod off. He feels something and opens his eyes.
I saw a hand right on my crotch with my pants unbuckled. I looked right up and I saw him, and he had his phone in his hand. He kept saying something that I can only remember as, I got you already. I got you, I got you, I got you, I got you, hypocrite. I heard him maybe use the word outed in the same sentence. I couldn't exactly remember.
If Sam Woodward is to be believed, Blaze was threatening him, and that's what made Woodward snap.
What, if anything, did you think he was doing with his cell phone?
I thought he might photograph me. I thought he might send text messages. I thought he might be trying to record me.
So at any point in time, did you see Blaze actually appear as though he was texting any messages?
Yes.
Sam Woodward says his fear was that there had been an image or video taken and that his family would learn about it.
I grew up in a home with my mother and my father and my brother. Loved them more than I can almost speak about. My father, though, if he'd heard about something like that got out somehow, I couldn't fathom that.
Sam Woodward then describes how he says things escalated.
I found one of the knives that I had used to open up the container of marijuana. I just kept driving and driving and driving and driving the knife down.
When you say driving the knife down, Sam, were you stabbing Blaze?
At that point, yes, I was.
In an effort to try to dispel any argument that this was a hate crime, Morrison asks Sam Woodward two final questions.
When you drove to Blaze Bernstein's house to pick him up, Sam, were you planning to kill him that night?
No, not at all.
Did you hate him because he was gay?
No, not at all.
But now, here's where the gamble of putting Woodward on the stand could either pay off or lose big.
Okay, so walk me through it, sir.
On cross-examination, Jennifer Walker attacks Woodward's credibility.
The left side of his neck was closest to you, right? If he's sitting to your right?
Everything was a blur.
Well, how did you stab him 14 separate times on the left side of his neck when he was sitting right next to you?
I can't remember.
And how did you stab him 5 separate times on the right side of his neck when he was sitting to your right?
I can't remember.
After a trial full of fits and starts, spanning almost 3 months, the case goes to the jury. The jury deliberates for about 8 hours.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Samuel Woodward, guilty of the crime of first-degree murder.
Thank God.
It's an emotional moment, even for the court clerk.
A felony and violate. Just 1 sec.
Sure.
I've prosecuted a lot of murder cases, and I can't say I've ever seen a court clerk react like that.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find it to be true that the defendant, Samuel Woodward, committed hate crime, first-degree murder.
We are thrilled with the verdict, which holds Samuel Woodward accountable for the brutal, violent, painful murder of our son. Justice has been served. Thank you.
Breaking news now, an emotional afternoon in an Orange County courtroom. The sentencing has just been handed down for the man convicted in the hate crime murder of Blaze Bernstein.
This time the court does sentence the defendant to state prison for the term prescribed by law, which is life without the possibility of parole.
The jury said that they saw this as a hate crime and that hate is not going to get you anywhere in this world.
In the 7 years since Blaze Bernstein's murder, the family of Sam Woodward has never spoken out beyond their court testimony. But the Bernsteins say the Woodwards did leave something for them back in 2018. Have they reached out to you, by the way?
Yeah.
We found a note under our doormat.
What did it say, this note? Orange County Sheriff's investigator Sergeant Dylan Jansen knows Borrego Park a lot better than he would like to. In the initial days of the investigation, how many hours would you say you spent at this park here?
Countless. I spent a lot of time over here just looking, thinking, analyzing, what was the truth, what's not the truth.
We may never know exactly what happened the night Blaze was murdered, or what that last text message meant. But Sergeant Jansen can answer one question based on the evidence.
That cell phone, even though it was damaged, we were able to send it to various companies to restructure the cell phone and extract any and all information on there.
Were there any pictures of that night?
No.
This park is pretty meaningful for you.
So we stop here and go check out the garden of rocks that are now over in the corner.
Do you feel that you get a little bit of closure each time you put one more rock down?
I don't even know what closure is. You lose a child. I think maybe closure for me will be just being able to look at all of these things and be happy.
Almost 7 years after I walked in Borrego Park with the Bernsteins, the memorial of painted stones honoring their son has blossomed. Jeannie and Gideon have both moved away from Foothill Ranch, but they tell me they still find solace in this place.
In the Jewish tradition, it is a thing that you put rocks at a gravesite.
And there's permanence to it.
It gives us some feeling of connection to people, the people that will hear our story and understand the importance of eradicating hate in this world. This is about love.
Since 2018, the Bernsteins have been building a movement. They call it Blaze It Forward.
The Blaze It Forward campaign was based off the idea that as a community, we can make a difference and we can change the way that this world works. We were able to take that in my brother's honor to try and encourage people to just do one good thing every day.
They participate in local pride parades, and Jeannie hosts a podcast featuring people doing good in the world. Sam Woodward's parents, Blake and Michelle Woodward, never responded to an interview request with ABC News, but they did write a letter to the court submitted at sentencing. It reads, in part, "In the past, you could look into Sam's eyes and be surprised at the level of sensitivity and warmth. It's one of his best traits. Now, he's too vulnerable to let you look him in the eyes. He committed a crime, but he is not a person without value, unworthy of respect." Speaking about the Woodward parents, they left a note at your house in 2018, right?
They did. At the time, I thought it was infuriating because one of the things that they said in that letter was that both families are going through a hard time right now. I don't think that she had any idea how hard of a time we were having.
But there's another letter that holds more meaning for Jeannie and Gideon, discovered after the trial, tucked among the colorful painted stones of Blaze's memorial.
This is a copy of a note that was left for us in the park by one of the jurors. She basically says in this letter to Blaze that she's really sorry that she didn't get to know him.
Thank you everyone for coming to class today.
So Blaze would be 27. Do you ever think about what he would be like today had he lived.
He'd be doing something fantastic. I know that about Blaze, and he'd be making people happy. That's what he did. Blaze is always on my mind. I think about him from the minute I wake up until I go to bed at night. He was my person.
He was a piece of man. He's gone. But I'm still here, and whatever he's done to make an impact on this world is what we're going to leverage and try to make sure that people never forget about our son and what happened.
Hatton Clark, he's a really strange person. You know, I lived with him and I heard a lot of different stuff from him. After the commissioner found out that he was actually my cell buddy, he came down, knocked on my window and said, "You're moving across the hall." And I said, "Why?" "He might wake up one day and think you're the devil. We can't take that chance." I said, "But the thing of it is, he only kills kids and women, so I'm not worried about it."
This guy is a serial murderer.
I think he's insane. He thought it was Jesus for real. I said, "Why did you do this to these people?" He said, "I saw my father do it."
He is just evil incarnate. We have to put him in the ground. We're gonna kill him. We're gonna kill him.
I traveled to Western Correctional Institute January of 2000 to interview Jack. Jack told me that Hatton had murdered Michelle Dorr and buried her in a park in Montgomery County, Maryland. I asked him if he would lead us to her body. He said he would. So we showed up the next morning, got Hatton out, and I said something to the effect of, "Okay, you ready?" And he said, "I'm not going." So I told one of the correctional officers to go get Jesus. So they went and got Jack Truitt out of his cell. He talked to Hatton in the hallway in front of me for a minute and then asked if he could use this side office. So when they went in, I pulled the door shut from the outside. So they were in there alone.
He told me straight up, "I'm not going." I said, "Look, you're going one way or another." Pushed him up against the wall. And I said, "You don't want to disappoint me." That's when he made the comment, "You're supposed to be peaceful." Batter up. I said, "I am peaceful. I'm using the power of the Lord to help get this evilness out of you." And he ate that up, man.
I don't know what took place behind that door, but when he came out, Hatton was ready to go. And then Jack told me, "I've got to go too."
Oh, he wasn't going nowhere without me.
So we loaded up. Jack sitting up front and Hatton's in the back with the two detectives on each side of him. Now, I thought Jack was laid back and somewhat cool for a prisoner, but he's also a convicted murderer. Now we've got two convicted murderers driving down the road. I had this thought in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, is this some type of escape plan? So I'm going a little fast, and I look over at Jack, and I see his eyes are kind of like bugging out of his head. He looks sick almost. I said, "Are you all right?"
I'm going 90 miles an hour. That really freaked me out. I said, "I haven't been in a vehicle in 30-some years." I was like, "Can you slow down a little bit?" God, please let him slow down.
We're taking Hatton and Jack to right off of Route 20 in Montgomery County, Maryland, near the White Oak neighborhood.
That area was like a dumping ground. There were bed springs, mattresses, just all kinds of junk in that area.
When we took him out of the car, Hatton seemed a little disoriented, almost a little confused. And then he said something to the effect of, "Well, it's been a while. Like these trees weren't this big."
He was excited because he wanted to travel all around through the woods.
After hours of walking, there was no obvious location or the exact spot that he had buried Michelle. I heard some talk by some other detectives. Yeah, maybe he didn't bury her here. Maybe this is just like a wild goose chase kind of thing.
And I was just standing there wondering, what are we going to do now?
Then I remember Ed with his foot kind of rubbing the dirt. Felt unique under his foot, I guess.
And I looked down, and there's a rusted wire, looked just like a twig, sticking out of the ground. I reached down and I pulled on that, and I kept pulling, and up comes a small bed spring. And I said, Haddon, come over here. Haddon comes over and gets down on the ground. He says, this is it, and starts clawing on the ground. He's trying to dig. That's when we decided to dig. That was the spot. Peeling the dirt back, they found the pink bathing suit. I remember we have a picture of the pink bathing suit coming up. Mostly just bones. Pink bathing suit and the bones. It's a miracle. That's all I got to say. I mean, it was almost like she wanted to be found. It was a bittersweet ending. I mean, we finally got the body back. I called Carl, and I mean, he didn't have much to say. I mean, the guy's still in shock.
Without Jack Truett's assistance, the body of Michelle Dorr would not have been recovered. He received information. He had courage given his situation in prison to bring that to the police.
It's just so horrible to do that to a human being, especially somebody that's just so innocent and going swimming in a pool and not bothering nobody. And there's no reason for stuff like that.
And just the way that he buried her. This is a person in a mind that has done this before. There was no doubt in my mind that there were other victims out there. That Haddon Clark was responsible for killing and burying.
On October 20th, I was at the bar in Olney with several other investigators from our shift and our sergeant.
Part of Laura's 2-mile walk to
They had a television on in the bar, and all of a sudden there was a headline that a Harvard graduate was missing from her Bethesda home. The sergeant looked at me and said, contact the district detectives and talk to them and see if they need help. Laura Hoodling was a young lady that graduated from Harvard and had returned home to live with her mom. She had been missing for several days.
If you know anything about the disappearance of Laura Bettis Hoodling, please call Montgomery County Police. She is 6 feet tall, 145 pounds, with brown eyes and shoulder-length blonde hair.
Penny, the mom, she hired you as a gardener? I got that job from a minister. Bible study. So the minister set you up with Penny? Yeah. Go to the same church as Penny went.
You put them on too tight? No, I'm sorry, Haddon or Hayden? Haddon. Haddon. Haddon, why don't you have a seat with you in just a minute, okay?
You know Penny? Well, Liz and I are here. We're here to help her. Because she's helped you for a year, hasn't she?
So, Penny, was she nice to you? Real nice. I was going through a lot of mental problems at this time. Penny was more like a mother figure. After my real mother told me she was content I was dead.
Do you consider Penny your friend? Were you sexually involved with her? Did you Penny? Did you her and she rejected you? And you got angry so you took it out on Laura?
Hey! Help me. Talk to me about Laura.
Now, how'd you meet her daughter? She came home from college. I didn't associate with her, no.
Hey, what can you tell me about Laura? Do you think she's pretty? Did she do something to make you angry? She hurt your feelings?
Pen, do you have a thing for pillows?
One time when Laura and Penny were up in Massachusetts, going to Penny's house, picking out one of Penny's nights. I slept in Penny's room. We came down, Penny's night, and ate breakfast. I love Penny. She also made donuts, drank. Well, then when Laura came into the picture, a lot of that stuff stopped.
There's her house. I wonder if the people who live here know what happened. My name is Susanna Quinn, and Laura Hodeling was one of my best friends. I met Laura in the 7th grade, and it was my first day in a new school. And I walked up the ramp, and she was sitting with a group of girls, which was rather intimidating, and she had this Dorothy Hamill haircut and this giant smile, and I looked at her and I said, "You should grow your hair, it would look so much better." And she laughed, and we were best friends from that day on.
After she graduated, she didn't really know yet what her career path would be. So that's why she moved back and was living with her mom. My name is Catherine Sheehan Bruno, and Laura Hodeling was one of my best friends.
She had just started this new job down in D.C. On the 19th, Laura didn't show up for work.
It was very uncharacteristic of Laura to not show up for work.
So one of her co-workers called her brother and said, "Hey, where's Laura?" And he said, "I have no idea. She should be working." He said, "No, she never showed up."
Warren Hodeling was Laura's brother, and they were incredibly close.
He went by the house. Laura's car was there. And he went in the house. Everything looked fine, but nothing disturbed. Apparently the house was secure.
So I went into her room. It was cold. So I picked up her Harvard sweatshirt and I put it on. And I flopped on the bed. And I said, "There's her file cabinet. Let me call her credit card company and pretend that I'm her and ask where it was last used, because maybe she bought a train ticket." She had last used the credit card when we bought shoes on Thursday. I don't know, there was just a heavy feeling of sadness in the air. That bad news was ahead.
Monday, we can't find her. On Tuesday, Penny got back home, and it became clearer and clearer that something was truly wrong.
Penny was an intelligent woman, but Penny was a hard-headed woman.
I don't want to even say on camera. I thought she was difficult. I thought she was a difficult person.
Penny didn't want to believe that anything had happened to her daughter, and thought it would not be unusual for her to just hook up with some rich guy and take off to the island somewhere. I'm sure she's fine. She's run off with some friends. She's just being a little spoiled brat and not telling us. It didn't seem plausible by her brother. Her brother said no.
Warren was worried. Warren was really concerned. When you grow up in sort of a dysfunctional family, I think you tend to bond with your siblings.
They were asking Penny sort of who has been around you, and Laura, and who are the boyfriends, who works in the house, those things.
When we talked to Warren, he mentioned that his mother had hired a gardener. And the first night that Laura was missing, Warren looks and here comes his truck. His mom's gardener, he happened to be driving by, and Warren attempted to stop him, to talk to him, but instead of stopping, the gardener drove off fast. He couldn't understand why he would do that. That seemed very unusual. The next morning I come in, and my sergeant's sitting in there. So I filled him in on what happened, and he said, "Well, who's the gardener?" And I said, "It's Haddon Clark." Penny was not aware of the door investigation. I don't believe she had any idea that he was a suspect when she hired him.
Penny really loved to garden, and she needed help with
all the kinds of things that go along with gardening. And Haddon was available.
From everything we could tell, after Haddon was kicked out of his brother's house, he was living out of his truck. And he had erected his own little campsite with a canvas tent and tools and other things that he would keep around.
People do have living in the woods. They consider us to be homeless. Most homeless people are filthy, just dirty. I want to smoke. They're not nice and clean. Smell good, use deodorant stuff.
Right.
I mean, I have food that you can make a sandwich with. Smoked salmon and bologna and cheese. If I lived in the woods, I didn't have to eat either. Some people want to be around me. I was companionship, huh? Really not into that. All of our family.
My understanding is Penny Hodling had a very charitable attitude towards people. She recognized Haddon Clark as somebody who was troubled, and she had a lot of faith and trust in rehabilitating this young man, giving him something to do.
That's when we started in depth with Penny. More about Haddon being the gardener, and she went into more detail about how odd he was. She would give him tasks to do in the backyard, such as digging a flower bed, and he would dig and dig and dig, didn't know when to stop.
Haddon Clark had a variety of kind of odd jobs.
Haddon was working at a bagel store. May have been right inside the DC line called What's a Bagel?
And he was actually a little bit of a well-known figure because he had a courier service where he called himself the Rockville Rocket. He'd wear a Washington Capitals hockey jersey sometimes. He'd roller skate, he'd bike. If you're going up and down Rockville Pike, one of the main thoroughfares, you might see this guy.
But looking in his background, we found so many unusual things.
I was in the Navy. 2 years, 8 months active duty. I was on the small base, aircraft carrier. Once the ship pulled out to sea, I went down to the food service department and applied for a food service job.
So when he came out, he got a civilian job with Navy Med in one of their cafeterias. They had raw chicken out, and they were going to cook it. And he put the raw chicken on the platter and put it on the stove, and then picked up the platter and drank the chicken blood. And his co-workers were like aghast. They reported to the supervisor, and he was relieved of the job. We knew about he was a suspect in the shelter ward, but we wanted to look and see what else has he done.
He was renting a room in Bethesda for a family.
Their daughter had been traveling abroad for a long period of time. They let Haddon rent out the basement, and they came to him and they said, "Our daughter's finally coming home from China. We're going to have you move out." Haddon's reaction to that was crazy. He dug into the drywall of her bedroom and put fish heads into it before resealing it. And so this family soon started to have this horrific smell from the bedroom, which they couldn't figure out for a long time until somebody came in and the walls and found all of this destruction.
And once you check him out and find out what he's done in the past, you become aware that there's something wrong. We go back and talk to Penny.
He had access to the shed, and she kept the key to the house and the shed. That was kind of suspicious, to say the least.
When Penny found out that we were looking into him, she was furious. There's no way he would hurt her. Leave him alone.
I had 3 jobs: sanitation, laundry, and I was the iceman. I kept walking by Haddon, and I'm like, what in the hell is that smell? So I went to his door. I said, "What are you doing in there?" I opened his locker, and there was 15 cartons of milk. He would save them. It's hot. He just let them swell up. It just was rancid, man.
I said, why would you do that? He said, it just reminds me of decayed bodies.
You know, we were fresh out of college. We were at the start of our lives. My brain just didn't go to, oh, something horrible has happened. You know, I almost thought of it as like, well, this is a mystery. We're just going to figure it out. So the police said the best way for us to find her is to figure out when she was last seen. You have a picture of her, you need to do flyers, you want to get this on the news. Warren and I started this sort of like sleuthing. Yeah, we were trying to Scooby-Doo it, making the phone calls, walking the streets looking for evidence. Like, we'll figure this out. We had no idea the terror and the evil that was in front of us.
Quite often, if there's a homicide, you will send patrol out to interview people. And that's when they talked to this Hispanic woman. She told the police officer that she had seen Laura on the morning that she disappeared. And she said, Laura came out of the house, and we're waving to her, and she ignores us. You know, I thought that was odd. Then we said, look, can you describe her for us? I said, yeah, she had on slacks and a long jacket. You know, that was interesting and had to be followed up on. The investigation hit the news, and they got a call from some psychic in Virginia. The psychic said, you know, I don't know anything about this case, I don't know what's going on, but I have this feeling you need to search this wooded area between two churches. It just so happened there were two churches with wooded area very close to where Laura was living. I contacted the investigator who was working the case down in Bethesda, and I said, hey, can you check this area? I came up here to check with the police officers that were doing the search in these woods. When I got here, I asked them how they were doing. They told me that they found some women's shoes, some women's clothing, and that they found also a pillowcase. They believed that it had been here a long time because it had stains on it, probably from leaves. You've found things in the woods and they have these stains on them. And as the leaves deteriorate, I said, really? Let me see the pillowcase. As soon as he showed it to me, I knew it was not stained by leaves. That staining was blood. The pillowcase was a very high-quality pillowcase, and it had a very unusual fringe on the end. We went down to talk to Mom. I said, okay, can we check her bedroom? Mom said, the bedroom is fine, absolutely fine, look at it. And she was somewhat irritated, went in and pulls back the bedspread and said, wait a minute, these aren't her sheets. And this isn't her pillowcase.
They were different, and it was a puzzle. She did not know where they came from.
And then she ripped back the sheet and said, the mattress pad is gone. She said, we always have a mattress pad on our mattresses. Somebody has changed these sheets. And that's when I asked about the pillowcase. And I had a picture of it and showed her, and I said, you know, they're the same. And she says, well, let me check. She always loved those, so I have two sets. Pulls it out, and it was the identical pillowcase with the fringe. I contacted my sergeant, and look, I need you to get the crime scene people down here. We're going to have to check this room. When the crime scene people got there, they used a chemical commonly referred to as luminol, and they spray it on the mattress.
Luminol, fluorescence, when it's under a black light, so we had to make sure the room was totally dark. It was getting dark, and they did the mixture and sprayed the luminol.
And then hit the lights, and all of a sudden it luminesced. You would like, oh my God.
It was covered with blood, and you could see where a hand was pulled off the bed.
you knew that this girl's dead.
After we saw the illumination from the luminol on the mattress, there was enough blood to suspect the worst.
So at that point, of course, we said, hey, this is a homicide. And then we took like a lamp, we took brushes, different things that belonged to her. So that was all taken and analyzed. They mentioned to us that the hairbrush, we have Laura Hodeling's hair in there, but also found a synthetic hair and didn't think anything of it.
We went out and notified Penny and Warren that we believed that there's a good possibility that Laura was murdered in that room. Warren just broke down. He just totally lost it. I remember Penny she just looked at us and said, which we were kind of shocked at her reaction.
I came home, I walked in the door, and there were like 17 messages on the answering machine. As I was playing the first one, which was a friend of mine saying, call me, don't call anyone else, call me first. The phone rang and it was Penny. And she said to me, Susanna, we know that Laura is no longer living in her body. She's dead. I hung up the phone and, years of watching soap operas and watching TV where people freak out and throw themselves, downstairs and at walls in grief, I thought, that's so ridiculous. That's not going to be me. And I, for probably the first and last time in my life, went bananas. I just kept saying, first my mother, now Laura, why is this happening? In 1 minute, all security, stability, safety that I felt in, the world, my community, with my friends was completely shattered. Our best friend, we are 22-year-old, 23-year-old young people, and our best friend has just been like ripped out of her life. All that promise and all that beauty and all that love is gone. I had chills. For years I thought, 24 hours after she was killed, I lay there on the mattress soaked with her blood.
After that, we decided we had to find Haddon. Every police district has what they call a SAT unit. It's a special assignment team. And we notified them that we needed to find Haddon Clark. And they did on East West Highway in Silver Spring, and they stopped him and they notified us that they had him down there. So we responded down there right away. That was my first encounter with Haddon Clark, and something I'll never forget. It was a small Datsun pickup truck, and the back of it had a mattress, and it was just full of stuff. And I walked up to talk to Haddon, and I told Haddon, I said, Laura is missing, and Penny is really concerned, and we need your help to try to find her. It was at that point Haddon goes, oh my God, I just want to die. And he went down on one knee.
We ended up taking him in, and that's where we told him about the bloody pillowcase, and he had tears in his eyes.
We tried talking to him for hours, and he didn't give us any concrete information at all. We didn't have enough probable cause to arrest him, so we allowed him to leave.
How would you describe yourself as a person?
I have built, but I'm really a nice guy.
Would you say you like to help people?
Yeah, I do. I help people all the time. I volunteered for my car at West Drive. I volunteered with a homeless program, great way to meet people.
Was it a good feeling in you that you were helping people?
Oh, yeah.
The two girls, do you feel bad about it? What do you feel?
Yeah, I did it wrong. I know that.
Did you have any remorse right after?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I felt sorry for what I did. But in some ways I did need to do it,
Do you think people can be forgiven?
I think they can. Some people think I can confess my sins, say I'm sorry, and then Jesus will forgive me, and then 24 hours get back doing the same sin again.
Did you do a lot of sins?
Quite a few times.
Detective Fallon got a search warrant for his truck.
In the pickup truck, he keeps a journal. In the journal, it would have the date and the time when he would buy $10 worth of gas. And then when he would buy $4 worth of power bars. He kept track of every dime that he spent.
We have secured a search warrant for a storage bin in Kensington, Maryland.
And went in, and Haddon Clark is meticulous. He's neat. He's obsessed with having everything, lined up.
We found his checkbook, and we found receipts. It was to a hardware store, and he had bought duct tape, baling twine, and he had in the notation section in the checkbook, he had the name Laura. We felt we had reasonable suspicion, but we didn't have any probable cause to arrest him at that point.
We're sitting there, we're trying to build the case against him, but we don't have evidence that he did anything. And I just wanted to rattle him and to get him upset that maybe he would do something to lead us where she was. So, Haddon had a voicemail. People could leave messages for him. That's a shot in the dark. Just sitting at my desk, probably midnight. I picked up the phone and dialed the number. As soon as it went to voicemail, I said, Haddon, this is Laura. Haddon, I need your help. I need you to help me. Haddon, you can't just leave me out here. I need to be buried. I need to be buried, Haddon. Please, I need you to tell them. I can't be at peace without you doing that. Haddon, please do this for me. Haddon. When you're hitting a dead end in the investigation, you go back and review everything in the file to see what you've missed. And lo and behold, there was this Hispanic lady that saw Laura leaving the house on the day Laura would have ended up missing. And when you look at that and you're starting to piece timeline together, it doesn't fit. She was already dead. And everybody's thinking, well, the woman doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. We call Penny and say, look, we're trying to confirm something here. We wanted to see if her slacks were still in her closet and is her trench coat still there. She said, Laura's 6'1". She don't wear slacks. She's tall. She wears dresses. She does not own any slacks. Is the trench coat still there? She doesn't own a trench coat. A tall woman's not going to wear a long trench coat. If you're going to wear a shorter coat, you want to look shorter. I'll tell you right now, that was not her. That's Haddon.
Christian doing things before now. Going out. Molesting one of those things should. Christian's always done little girls. And is that why she dresses up and stuff like that? I said, Rachel, when did Kristen start doing that? She's been doing that since she's about 10 years old. Oh, where does she get the clothes to be now? Oh, my father one time dressed me up like a little girl. I mean, yes, is that true? Sure, well, he did. That molested little kid, and you were 10.
Never happened. Never happened.
My family would never agree with that. My family only want to know what they want.
I don't know about anybody making him, but he was caught several times taking intimate articles from my mom's dresser. I mean, playing dress up is just a thing. It doesn't mean anything necessarily.
So we went back and did searches in the storage facility, and we found all of these high heels. And he had bras and falsies. found out that he did have slacks, a whole bunch of ladies' slacks that would match, and he had a bunch of wigs. He had red wigs, black wigs, brown wigs, and he had a blonde wig. So we took the blonde wig, and when they examined the wig, it matched the synthetic hair that was found in Laura's brush in her bedroom. So then you go, okay, here we are. Now this is Haddon leaving the house. So why would he do that? He's already murdered her. He's already carried her out of there. Well, he had to go back to the house, clean up the mess, make the bed. Then to cover his tracks, he leaves at the time he knows she would normally leave, but he wears slacks and a trench coat and a wig. But still was not enough to arrest him.
This guy was seen walking out of Laura's house, dressed like her. Come on, man. Is he evil? He's not only evil, he's very cunning. He talked about growing up, but it was like really, really weird. He would say they dressed him in women's clothes from the time he was little. They treated me like a girl. They even told me, if you have to go to the bathroom, you sit down, because only boys stand up. And if it's true, that had to be a lot on a kid.
There was a lady that saw you dressed up like a woman. Yeah, but trench coat.
We felt we had reasonable suspicion, but we didn't have any probable cause to arrest him at that point. Sue Blue, the chemist, was still dealing with the pillowcase in our lab upstairs.
When Sue was examining the pillowcase, she takes out like a little piece of the blood to test it. And she mentions, I think there's a fingerprint in the blood. I look at it and say, that looks like a toe print. So then we packaged it up. We take it down to the regional lab that examines fingerprints. A short time later, I get a call from the lab, I said, hey, this is a thumbprint. And so they then ran it through the system, and it comes back as Haddon Clark's thumbprint.
It was the kind of fingerprint that his fingers would have been in that blood.
So now we've got probable cause to arrest him.
They found him sleeping in his truck at Mormon Temple in Silver Spring in the parking lot. When he was arrested, he was sleeping with a teddy bear. And that's where we took him into custody.
Em xin gửi tới các bạn bài hát chia tay hoàng hôn, một sáng tác của nhạc sĩ Nguyễn Hồng Anh. Anh phải về thôi, xa em thôi, hoàng hôn yên lặng cũng theo về, giọt nắng cuối ngày rơi xuống tóc và lời từ biệt trắng lên môi. Anh phải về thôi, xa em thôi, xa hàng cây đêm họ hẹn ta ngồi, hoa khế dùng tím ngăn lối nhỏ để mãi lòng ta sao xuyên bồi hồi. Chia tay em, chia tay hoàng hôn, chia tay em, chia tay hoàng hôn. Anh mang theo về tình yêu và nỗi nhớ, anh mang theo về con tim cô đơn. Chia tay em, chia tay hoàng hôn, chia tay em, chia tay hàng cây, cưới lại cho em trái tim thắm lửa, cưới lại cho em một nửa vầng trăng. Anh phải về thôi, xa em thôi, xa hoàng hôn yên lặng cũng theo về, giọt nắng cuối ngày rơi xuống tóc mà lời tình biệt chẳng lên môi. Anh phải về thôi, xa em thôi, xa hàng cây đêm hò hẹn ta ngồi, hoa khế chia tay em, chia tay hoàng hôn. Anh mang theo về tình yêu và nỗi nhớ, anh mang theo về con tim cô đơn. Chia tay em, chia tay hoàng hôn, chia tay em, chia tay hàng cây, gửi lại cho em trái tim thắm lửa, gửi lại cho em một nửa vầng trăng.
This program is rated 14 plus and contains scenes of violence and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
The 5 Point Generals are viewed as one of the biggest threats in the GTA at that time.
There was a number of shootings that were attributed to the 5 Point Generals and their members within a very short period of time.
With that escalation of that kind of gun violence, we were looking for where these guns were coming from, who was bringing these guns in. It took a wiretap of this magnitude and significance to take these individuals out.
So we're listening. We're watching.
On May 23rd, there was calls coming that there was something coming across the border.
Wait a minute. Stop. Who wants them to get fixed, right?
The stage was set for them to acquire a large shipment of guns, and we were set to intercept it. He reverses into the driveway. Someone unknown to us opens the trunk, takes a large package out, a heavy package, puts it in the back. We do a high-risk vehicle stop of the vehicle and bringing his vehicle to a halt.
At the time, was the biggest firearm seizure in the history of the Toronto Police.
Welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. In Canada's largest city, one of the biggest threats to public safety is the escalating gang violence that has turned the streets into battlegrounds. Deadly force is now the preferred method to settle scores, and innocent bystanders are often paying the price. Now, to stop the flow of illegal guns from across the U.S. border, police are fighting back, working to infiltrate the street gangs before more lives are lost. Here now is Karen Lieberman with The Hand Behind the Gun.
Weston Road and Lawrence Avenue in Toronto's West End. The sounds of a busy, vibrant community at work and at play. But lately, these streets have been shattered by different sounds.
One male was armed with a sawed-off shotgun, while the other male was in possession of a handgun. They were only in the store for 5 seconds. Or it was a frenzied attack. They just opened fire in the direction of the table with total disregard for the safety of anybody in the store.
We quickly ran down the street, but I was able to see that they were at least pumping his chest to try to revive him. When we got to the hospital, they said that he was already gone.
I miss my baby. My baby was a good boy.
Gerald Higley was just 17 years old. Shot while out for late-night pizza with friends.
A survivor of gun violence, they transformed our beloved teenager on the brink of his manhood from a living, breathing person to a statistic.
It's been an epidemic surging in Toronto since 2005, the year of the gun.
There's definitely there's a murder here.
Year-old Eamon Beckles was gunned down by the front doors of this North Etobicoke church while attending his best friend Jamal Hemming's funeral. The 17-year-old had also been shot to death a week earlier.
A shocked congregation watches paramedics lift Eamon Beckles into an ambulance alongside his best friend's hearse.
The question I need to ask, how many more victims are we going to have until it's going to stop? If we stand up and we say no more, the gangsters are going to have to hear it. They can't hide behind the guns. They can't hide behind the silence. Because we as a people are not going to let them hide any longer.
Fast forward to 2018. Gun and gang-related homicides in Toronto have almost doubled in the last 5 years.
Right here in this area, I would say this is the core of the 5PG territory, their drug turf. And there's been numerous shootings and numerous homicides right here on these streets. And many of them are directly related to the 5PG.
The 5 Point Generals. Police intelligence have been investigating them for months.
The 5PG were responsible for at least 4 murders, 10 attempted murders, I think it was 69 robberies.
And detectives fear the violence is escalating.
There was a number of shootings that were attributed to the 5 Point Generals and their members within a very short period of time. There were some retaliations going back and forth between different gangs in the city. They were getting out of control.
Along with the escalation of violence in the street is the constant intimidation through social media and the bragging and postings of gang symbols and their tattoos and flashing their money and their weapons and the fueling of the conflict through music videos.
Fresh out of jail, back in the game like Vic.
Did have a hierarchy. I would say Joe Dawkins was at the top of that list. This group shared in their resources, their profits, and also their weapons. We identified that there was 145 guns seized from this particular group and their associates.
With that escalation of that kind of gun violence, we were looking for where these guns are coming from. Who is bringing these guns in? There's potential for being live calls of where the shootings are about to occur. That's my...
The Guns and Gangs Major Project Section launches Project Patton.
In February of 2018, we were granted a authorization to intercept private communications of 91 named persons.
Once we start going live right off the start, who are we going to target?
When we do our initial wiretap authorization, we look to identify the back ends, who's supplying drugs, who's supplying the firearms to our organization.
In a covert location, they're about to infiltrate this dangerous gang's world.
Once we flip the switch, once we go live, there is no easing into it. Anything could happen on day one.
I was one of the lead investigators in the Y room. Our job is to direct surveillance, listen to intercepts as they come in.
We end up listening to about 30 lines at a time, but some people can have multiple phones.
Is that what? It's a mixture of things and...
We're getting thousands of calls a day.
Investigators are hearing the information. The surveillance team receives the information and we become the eyes of the project, and we're being directed towards the violence, towards the people who are committing the violence.
Andrew, he was driving down the street and all of a sudden he calls into the Y room. He says, I'm hearing shots being fired. I'm not sure where they're coming from.
I pull up to this light, and as I'm sitting here at 5:30 in the evening, gunshots go off. Pedestrians on this side of the street, pedestrians on that side of the street. They're running northbound, they're running eastbound. Honestly, pandemonium out here. I call the wire in, and almost immediately it's one of our targets on the line who's been shooting into traffic. We're able to arrest him and seize the firearm he actually used in that shooting.
They take down violent crime, but want to uncover who is putting guns into hands.
We started intercepting communications to certain individuals. One of them was Bill Allison. Bill Allison was an affiliate of many of these 5 Point Generals.
So what time
He's speaking to a male in Florida. He was referring to as Biggs.
One Japanese on right now.
This group spoke patois.
Something completely different. You understand?
It was a very hard patois, very difficult to even understand.
Pick up the Irish much there.
There was coded language used. There's different terms for guns, for drugs, for money.
They listen into a call from a car. A meeting is going down between Allison and an unknown male.
Come, me come right, Paul, and me to the shoppers. All right, cool.
Something that had a criminal element to it. And at that point, so I contacted Detective Steinwell, said, we need to see this meet. We need to identify who Mr. Allison is meeting with, and advised them that we believe this transaction is going to be down at the shops at Don Mills.
So our surveillance team sets up in that area, and we're waiting for somebody, and we're not sure who it is. So we race to this area, and we actually find them in the parking lot. They acknowledge each other, and then they follow each other in tandem through the lights and down the Donway, and both vehicles then turn down this driveway.
Next to these high-rise condos.
And one vehicle in front of the other. Both get out, have a brief conversation, and the male goes to the trunk of his minivan and takes out a package, gives it to Bill Allison, he puts it in his vehicle, and I observe all of that.
Detectives follow a man not known to them before.
He pulls into his driveway, and from his truck he pulls out several boxes of mangoes and puts them in his garage.
At that point is how we identified Harris Poyser in this criminal organization.
They later hear what was in that package.
The one them give you, we are protesting on that man. Okay, all right.
What we believe and know now is that there was a firearm transaction between the shops of Don Mills.
As the investigation into this group gathers steam, we realize that these firearms are coming from the United States, and they're going to go directly to the streets of Toronto into the hands of criminals.
There's been an uptick in gun violence in Toronto's West End, and police are zeroing in on a supply pipeline for a violent gang. Steps away from a busy shopping plaza, they observe a meeting that pays off.
Harris Poyser met with Bill Allison that day, and there's clearly an exchange on that day. It's like, wow, we have a gun trafficking right off the start like this. How big is this?
They hear that the firearm was arranged by someone across the border.
And keep us serving again and again.
Who appears to be singing a day after the delivery.
We intercepted Biggs. They had a Florida phone number under a false name. This was a subject that was completely unknown to us.
Hello? Yeah.
You could tell that he was very skilled at what he was doing as far as criminal activity, and this was not his first rodeo.
In a three-way call, they hear Biggs arrange another meeting with someone by the name of Mumsy.
The intercept came in, and it was clear that Bill Allison was going to meet Mumsy, and there was going to be an exchange of money, but also an exchange of information.
So that Queen and 50? Yeah. Yeah, Queen and 50 me there, I put this big. Why you there? Not that far from there, that's why I'm asking. All right, give me 5 minutes. All right? Yeah. Okay.
The observations were made in a grocery store parking lot. That's where they ended up meeting up. She was parked. Bill Allison pulls into the parking lot, parks close to her. He goes over and meets with her, provides her with a bundle, and then she left the location.
We didn't think Mumsy's role was that big other than being the recipient of potentially money or whatever Allison had given her. We believe it was money because looking back at it, it was a gun on that day that Harris Poyser gave to Bill Allison.
Harris Poyser, on the other hand, becomes a big target in this investigation.
When we first identified Harris Poyser, he wasn't our typical gun trafficker. He was an older man, he had a family, he had a normal job. I recall it was importing fruit from Jamaica. Once we started listening to Harris Poyser, it opened up the big picture.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. How you doing? I'm good. So you're about 30, depending where right now.
So in May of 2018, information was given to us from the wire room that Harris Poyser was meeting 2 of his associates in this parking lot. And they met roughly in this area here. Harris Poyser parked his vehicle in this spot. One male comes up, very young looking, sunglasses, approaches Harris Poyser, and we think, who is this? We have a second male approach. They all seem to be deep in conversation.
Kareem Lewis was identified through facial recognition. So we had such a good face shot of him from the surveillance video, we were able to get that matched to an arrest photo that we already had on file with the service. And then Kamar Cunningham was identified through the vehicle that he arrived in.
We weren't sure what their roles were in this group. We really weren't sure what Harris Poyser's role was in this group, but we were going to find out very shortly. That day, later, Harris Poyser went on his way, and Kamar Cunningham and Kareem Lewis drove to Cornwall.
A border town in eastern Ontario, around 100 kilometers from the capital, Ottawa.
They went to a house on 515 Oliver Lane in Cornwall. And no, not much on the lines about any pickups, any guns, any drugs coming back, or was it money going to the person at Cornwall?
They pulled on a street where we couldn't get any observations, and then they drove back directly on the highway.
At this point, we didn't know what was exchanged, if anything at all. We followed the targets back to the city.
What we didn't realize at that time, there was an exchange of guns that was coming back.
The very next day, Kamar Cunningham met Harris Poyser again in this lot, moving closer towards this World's Gym.
They were sitting in their vehicles. There was a door-to-door meeting, but unfortunately our surveillance team wasn't set up in a position to observe that.
And although information was coming from the wire room that there was possibly a firearm transaction, we were unable to see anything change hands.
We were never able to make the call to do a takedown at that moment.
From that meet, we don't follow Poyser, we follow Kamar. Kamar Cunningham was then followed back to Mississauga, where he was seen carrying the bag from his vehicle and meeting people in and around his condo.
A call tells them what they missed.
They discussed how the guns weren't good guns.
Which one load? The whole one, you want rusty one come and brother.
Some of them were rusted, some were broken.
Everybody load, brother. No, one rusty one, man. But you know that was a mistake. But it can load.
It wasn't until later that intercepts told us that 30 firearms exchanged hands that day.
What was scary is that Kamar Cunningham was able to get rid of those guns so quick. And they weren't good guns. They were rusted. They were just selling them off and people were taking them.
He's the one who delivers it to the streets.
Just weeks into the wiretap, they've discovered a cell that's bringing guns to Toronto, and they've just missed a big shipment.
We were frustrated, we were a bit upset, but it wasn't long after that we started to receive information that there would be a larger load coming in from Cornwall.
We determined at that point in time there was not going to be another shipment making it through, so we were going to do everything we could possibly do to ensure the second shipment was not making it into Toronto.
What they don't realize is that the next shipment will be the biggest in Toronto police history. That is, if they catch it.
Welcome back. Just weeks into a massive wiretap investigation, Toronto police are dropped into an international smuggling ring. They are rushing to connect the dots before the pipeline brings more guns over the border. We now return to Karen Lieberman with the hand behind the gun.
Toronto's Guns and Gangs team is on high alert for another shipment of guns.
At that point, we didn't know what was going on in Florida, how these guns were getting up here. We knew nothing other than the fact they showed up on the other side of the border in Cornwall.
Detectives ask alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents to track down a target with a Florida phone number.
We have an individual who goes by Biggs. Did not know his true identity, and we were able to determine that he had multiple driver's licenses and a couple of different passports in alternative identities.
They've tracked him all across the state of Florida with no luck.
On May 23rd, there was calls coming that there was something coming across the border, that Biggs had set it up down there.
Wait a minute. How much did they get? 60, right?
In Toronto, they also witness a flurry of activity.
So we're listening, we're watching, we're taking every little detail into consideration so we don't miss this shipment. While Harris Poyser jostles around his mangoes, he's also looks to be animated when he's talking to Kamar.
And right away we determined that Poyser was going to go to Cornwall and Cream Lewis was going to go to Cornwall with him. And we had 2 surveillance teams on them.
They've trailed cars up this route before, but never like this. A transport crash has caused the highway to ignite on fire.
On that day, all traffic of the 401 was closed, all traffic was diverted off of the highway, and so it was very challenging to get him to Cornwall.
While stuck in traffic,
Then it moved from 18.
they rely on the wire room or listening into their targets in hopes of finding out what they're picking up.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I got 60. Yeah.
When they talk 60 and 100, you're still thinking kilos of coke. So on that date, was it the guns coming across or was it drugs coming across?
We follow Harris Poyser to Cornwall. We set up observations there and we're waiting. We're waiting to see what Travis is hearing in the morning.
Trust me. Well, yeah. Supposed to done already, because they're pretty. Yeah, everyone.
And at one point, Harris Poyser says very quickly at the end of the conversation, he says to Biggs, how are they wrapped? Are they wrapped nicely?
You put in a plastic bag each? No, man, they must scratch up them wrap the right way. Them wrap up. Terrible.
His response to that was, no, they're all packaged very softly so they don't scratch. At that point, I realized it was guns and not drugs. No one cares about scratching kilos of cocaine. I've never heard that. But scratching new guns, do you value them? So at that point, I was confident there was 60 guns.
The stage was set for them to acquire a large shipment of guns, and we were set to intercept it. When they get to Cornwall, Cream Lewis goes to a rest stop on the highway, and he waits for Poyser.
Harris Poyser was observed to go to 515 Oliver Lane.
He reverses into the driveway. Someone unknown to us opens the trunk. It goes to the garage, takes a large package out, a heavy package, puts it in the back, goes back to the garage. I relay that information to Travis Clark, and he corroborates the information that he's receiving on the wiretap.
He said there were very heavy bags, just 2 of them, that went into Mr. Poyser's vehicle.
Poyser never gets out of the car. The trunk is closed, and then he turns back the exact same way he came.
After Poyser picked up the guns, Poyser was calling Lewis to meet up and do the exchange, but Lewis didn't answer the phone because he was asleep, and because we had our surveillance team watching him, so we knew he was asleep, and that's why he wasn't answering the phone.
The surveillance team in the plane followed Poyser out of the area.
When he gets onto the road that leads to the highway, my thoughts were, we cannot let him get onto the highway. And from there, Travis Clark is confident enough to tell us to stop the vehicle, arrest Poyser for possession of firearm, and seize what's in the trunk.
He had a full grasp of the moment, as well as I did, the chance we're about to take. And when I see that word takedown, I'm putting one of my best friends, Andrew Steinwall, in a precarious position, but I'm asking him to do his job. They have to take this individual in custody. They have a natural fight or flight mentality like most humans do, and most of them are armed. It's a very dangerous situation to be in. And I hung up the phone and I sat and waited, and at that point it was just quiet. It was quiet.
It was pumping at this time. We're hoping that, we were right. We're hoping that what we were seeing are firearms in there, and we're hoping that the information that Travis Clark received was accurate. We do a high-risk vehicle stop of a vehicle by surrounding his vehicle with other vehicles and bringing his vehicle to a halt. Harris Poyser is taken out without any incident, and I go directly to the trunk.
The room was intense, and you could hear a pin drop waiting for that call from the team and Detective Steinwall to let us know exactly what they found.
And the call came in, and I could hear it in his voice. I've known Andrew, we've worked together our entire careers. I could hear his voice.
We popped the trunk, and there is 2 duvet cases, plastic, see-through, and you could tell that these would be ideal for putting firearms in and not scratching them. And he said, "How many are in there?" I said, a lot. Like, a lot. At first, I think I told him, I feel 10, I feel like 15. I think there's 30 in this one. I think Travis said to me, Are you lying? Are you lying? I'm not lying. There's not 5, there's 10, there's 20, there's 30 in each bag.
And at that moment, it's just like the stress of getting this, and actually massive part of our goal was to stop the flow of guns into this community.
I stayed with the firearms, and while I was waiting for Cornwall Police, I proved the firearm safe on the hood of the vehicle. It actually looked very pretty on the top of the hood, top of the police car. You know, I was thinking about what Travis had told me, that they said these are pretty guns, and they look pretty. Like, there was pink guns and camouflage, light blue.
Those pictures were sent back to the wire room, and it was a pure celebration.
There were a lot of high fives that day.
It was the single largest seizure of guns in Toronto police history.
I can advise that 60 of the handguns that you see before you today were obtained in a single seizure from an individual who was intending on delivering them to high-ranking individuals within the 5-point general's hierarchy. The guns were destined to become crime guns in Toronto and the GTA.
They described them in the intercepts as pretty little things. They were pink camouflage. They were small. They had extended magazines that could hold, illegally, hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition in that gun. So when you get them all laid out with the colors of the rainbow, they were pretty little guns.
They're so perfect for carrying on your person. They're almost meant to match your outfit, to show your friends. These are guns that can be easily concealed and all in the hands of criminals. They are so dangerous.
I don't know how many homicides we stopped. I don't know how many shootings we stopped. How many innocent victims were saved from 60 guns being out there.
But the big question on their minds, is there more to come?
From the time the guns were seized, law enforcement scrambling, trying to figure out where did these guns come from. Most importantly, are there more that we missed that are going to reach the destination?
They uncover that this was one of 2 shipments.
They had 40 guns apparently that were coming again. There was indications they were in New York. No idea where they were in New York.
We suspect what happened is once we seized the 60 guns in Cornwall, they shut down operations, and those 40 guns never made it back into Canada, and we never had any further intercepts to indicate that those guns made it into Canada.
There is little chatter on the line.
We were only intercepting Biggs through his conversations with Bill Allison and with Harris Poyser at that point. So once we arrest those individuals, it's quiet. It's quiet.
At this time, we still didn't know who Biggs was. Obviously, he's the central figure who's arranging all of this.
So after the guns are seized, we begin the task of identifying the firearms through their serial numbers and determining where they were purchased and who purchased them.
I was a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosives, commonly known as ATF. The ATF became part of the investigation immediately to help facilitate and coordinate the traces. ATF has to call the manufacturer, who then calls the importer or wholesaler, who then calls the individual dealer, and the individual dealer maintains a paper record of that purchase.
They trace the guns back to Central Florida.
The Central Florida Gun Show is at the Central Florida Fairgrounds, and it's held quarterly. Vendors, which are normally federal firearms licensees, they set up a table and they're able to sell to the public. Over 60 of them were bought in that location.
And they discover they were bought by just 3 people.
We go to the gun dealer and we say, okay, can you just give us everything you have from the purchase? If you have surveillance video, we wanted to know were other people present during the purchase. In this case, the purchasers acted alone. They bought 10, 15 guns. The exchange occurred just like any other, and they walked away. So what we found was that the purchasers were not what you would call like career criminals. However, they were exploited and used by career criminals to put their name on firearms. We had 3 different people, seemingly unrelated. The fact that they didn't know each other and they told a consistent story and they appeared coached on how to potentially evade prosecution and evade capture. It showed us the level of sophistication within this organization.
So combined, those 3 individuals ended up purchasing 58 of the 60 handguns within 4 days of them arriving in Canada.
It's a very short time to crime. The time it takes for an illegal gun to end up in the hands of a criminal.
We're used to seeing hundreds of days, sometimes years, on the time to crime stats when we seize a gun, but in this case, we knew it was a direct line from Florida up to Canada through Cornwall.
They don't believe they came through a border checkpoint.
Through our investigation, we determined that they came north into the border on the U.S. side, at which point they utilized a male known to us only as Apache to bring them through the Akwesasne Reserve just in the Cornwall area.
We had an idea who he was. There was never enough evidence to identify who he was.
They are still trying to put a face to the man they think is calling the shots.
Biggs was the one telling how many were going. He was coordinating with Allison. He was coordinating with Apache. He was coordinating with Harris Poyser.
For somebody to disguise who they are, where they live, continually move around multiple states in the U.S., multiple countries, through multiple identities, as far as level of criminal, he would be somebody who's at the top.
After a 9-month investigation, they make the call to take down the 5-point generals.
We were about to kick in the doors of 49 residences, and we needed the assistance of 21 tactical teams to do so. And our goal was to arrest the 60 suspected gang members and their associates.
The magnitude of the takedown, given there's so many to arrest, the violence of these individuals, the guns that we expected still to be in their residences.
As they execute warrants, the gun tally grows.
In the basement of one of the residences, we found a firearm manufacturing and modification operation.
So they were building basically Frankenstein guns and then distributing them out onto the street. And we seized, I think, 5 of them during our investigation for Project Patton, and then shut down this individual that was building them.
There was 78 firearms seized at the end of the project. I believe there was 93 people arrested and charged.
They arrest all but one of the suspects they've identified in this gun smuggling ring.
When we do our takedown, Kamar Cunningham had actually fled the country. He was out of the country in Jamaica. So we put out a warrant for his arrest.
Just have a seat on that wall there.
They bring in one of their very first targets, Bill Allison, for questioning.
Okay, who's Biggs?
Biggs is a guy in
They're closing in on the man who they believe is the architect of a firearms pipeline.
Welcome back. In a major crackdown, police arrested nearly 100 alleged associates of a violent street gang, bringing a wave of hope to the city's fight against crime. Well, authorities are now focused on tracking down the mastermind behind the illegal flow of firearms crossing the border. Here now is Karen Lieberman with a conclusion of the hand behind the gun.
He'll be one of the first lines up. He's probably going to have more.
Detectives hope to finally put a face on the man they say is at the top of an international firearms smuggling ring.
There's a lot of people that were arrested this morning. We're alleging that you're part of a criminal organization, a larger group.
They've arrested Bill Allison, the target they followed to the shops at Don Mills and witnessed receive a package from Harris Poyser, which they later heard was a firearm.
Have you come into possession of firearms in the last 3 months? By anybody on the street or anything like that? No. So you don't sell firearms or anything?
I don't sell firearms.
What if I told you we've been listening to you for 3 months on your phone?
You've been listening to my phone for 3 months?
Yeah.
Maybe possible.
Yeah.
Yo. Yeah.
They play back the phone intercepts.
Hello? Hello? Yo. Oh, yeah, Jeff.
They want to know who the other voice is, the man he was speaking with.
What's his actual name?
I don't know his actual name. I know his mom.
And it just became more clear that he was the son of Barbara Booth.
Surveillance teams identified Barbara Booth, who they knew as Mumsy, after she allegedly met with Bill Allison in this grocery store parking lot.
Mumsy got arrested too?
That's his mom, but I don't know.
Yeah, she's here.
She's here.
Because you gave her money and to send for him. What do you think Mumsy's going to tell us? What the money's for?
I don't know.
Hello? It's Barbara. Yeah. And last name Booth?
Yes.
Does the name Biggs mean anything to you?
Huh?
Does the nickname Biggs mean anything to you?
Biggs? No.
Never heard that name before?
She has 2 older sons. One piques their interest.
What's his name?
Ernest Wilson.
Ernest Wilson, okay. When's the last time you spoke to him?
I don't remember.
What was your purpose of taking Allison that day?
I don't remember. No.
Okay.
Barbara Booth denies meeting and receiving money from Bill Allison.
If you were to receive a sum of money, $4,600 at the food base, that's something you would remember?
How much?
$4,600.
No, sir. Money? No, sir.
On June 21st, when we had Barbara Booth, Mumsy, in a room and the other members of this network, ultimately we were able to discover that Ernest Wilson was Barbara Booth's son and also believed to be Biggs at that time.
Police quickly discover Ernest Wilson is wanted.
Ernest Wilson was a fugitive. He was arrested for possession for the purpose of trafficking cocaine. I believe he fled. He didn't appear in court after he was released, and he fled at that time.
Ernest Wilson was a Canadian citizen that was hiding out in the States and trying to evade arrest in our country.
When Toronto police find out, they let us know the marshals down in South Florida were tracking Ernest Wilson.
As the manhunt intensifies across the border, Kamar Cunningham is captured in Toronto.
He flew back into Pearson Airport, and when he arrived at Pearson, he ended up getting identified and arrested.
The Crown prepares to prosecute this cell, but all will not be brought to trial. Shortly after arrest, Kareem Lewis took his own life. Detectives get a call about Ernest Wilson.
The marshals had a location for Wilson in Coconut Creek, Florida, and they were looking to apprehend him. They tracked him down to a certain apartment complex, but they were too late. He had been murdered, killed via a gunshot wound, about 4 hours before the marshals located him. We feel that he was killed due to an ongoing dispute that he had with others, based on the life he was living.
I am talking in general. I am not no parents.
Barbara Booth, she was charged with a very minor offense in the overall scope of the criminal organization. So at that time, the decision was made to drop the charge on her, and then she was able to travel to the U.S. to collect her son's body.
In 2020, the trial is set to go remotely. Just months before, Harris Poyser pleads guilty to firearms importation and trafficking, leaving Bill Allison and Kamar Cunningham to stand.
There's a lot of elements to that, to meet and prove to a judge that they were knowingly and actively a part of this criminal organization.
Yeah, what's it done already? And them pretty. Yeah, everyone.
Based on these complex investigations, it is a real challenge for the Crown attorneys. Hours and hours of surveillance video, hundreds of thousands of wiretap intercepts.
Yeah, we're supposed to get $62.05, but him have $500 for me.
There's no better evidence than listening to the accused with his own voice talk about their own criminal activities.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, the wiretap produced the best evidence possible to result in numerous convictions.
Harris Poyser is sentenced to 15 years for firearms importation and trafficking.
Bill Allison was charged in relation to the firearms trafficking. He received a sentence of 6 years and 8 months.
Kamar Cunningham was convicted of firearms trafficking, but he was not there to hear his sentence.
Even though he had been convicted and was facing a fairly serious sentence, they released him on bail again, and then very short time before his actual sentencing date, he was reported missing by his sureties, the people that were supposed to be responsible for monitoring his activities, and he has not been seen since. So I applied to have him added to the BOLO program. They agreed, and there's currently a $50,000 reward for his arrest.
Kamar Cunningham may or may not be pulling the trigger, but he is definitely putting the firearms in the hands of people who would pull the trigger. How important is apprehending Kamar Cunningham? Extremely important for the safety of the citizens of Toronto.
At the end of the project, they stopped 78 guns from making it to the streets.
We take Project Patton, from what we saw, stopped that flow of guns. There's a lot for an illegal firearm to get from a gun show in Orlando into the hands of an individual in Toronto who's going to do a homicide. There's a lot of people in control, a lot of people responsible for bringing those guns here to Canada, and they're responsible for those shootings that occur on the street. It took a wiretap of this magnitude and significance to take these individuals out.
Immediately after Project Patton, we saw a noted decrease in the level of violence, especially the level of gun violence in this area. At that time, they were one of the greatest risks of public safety in our city, and we did our best to dismantle them.
Despite the success of takedowns like Project Patton and the thousands of illegal weapons seized each year, crime guns continue to flow into Canada. Police say every gun on the street matters. It only takes one round to devastate a community. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube.